Stop right there, Altera. You're on my turf.
It would appear I'm far less alone on this planet than I had anticipated. Landing was a bit rough, but I don't think they've spotted me.
You sure you want this?
I need to know what happened. I'll find my way back.
Subnautica Below Zero is a DLC from the original game called Subnautica, which is an open-world survival game that was developed and published by Unknown World Entertainment on May 14, 2021. The game can be played as a single player only, and you can buy it for $30 on Steam. Dive into a freezing underwater adventure on an alien planet. Below Zero is set 2 years after the original Subnautica. Return to planet 4546b to uncover the truth behind a deadly cover-up. Survive by building habitats, crafting tools, and diving deeper into the world of Subnautica. My name is ICOnlyBlue and I'm a survival game expert. I do educational survival reviews by analyzing and explaining in depth game mechanics and ideologies. In order to make this video, I had to complete the story and utilize all of the available craftables to the best of my abilities, all within 63 hours. Videos like this take a very long time to create, so I would much appreciate if you join my live streams where I do my playthroughs. With no more delays, let's begin with the menu settings. You can create or continue your previous playthrough without a window for your other save files. If something catastrophic happened to your game, there is no way to recover. Under general settings, the developers decided to throw everything in one window, which I will try to bring some clarity. Running the game in the background, displaying the news on the welcome page, and subtitle configurations are commonly found under this tab. Changing the size of the subtitles is unavailable, which forced me to disable it since it was covering half of my screen. UI settings also could be included, without the need of a dedicated tab. Display settings should have been under graphics and sound under their own window. Since there is no cinematic audio slider, I had a hard time starting my game without blowing my earphones.
The farthest I can take you on company space bucks, Robin. You sure you want this? The research is in everything.
Did you just go 1 to 1,000 real quick? Other slightest such as sound effects is also missing, which could have differentiated the ambient audio from the rest. There is a workaround, but I wanted a more convenient option. Under graphics, you have everything you need in order to make your game look good without any problem. Personally, I never use bloom, depth of field or motion blur, and having the option to choose a different anti-aliasing allow me to customize my graphics exactly as I wanted to. When you mouse over some of the settings, you get an explanation pop-up, which I wish I could have for some of the other ones. The story begins with you leaving an airship and few seconds later it exploded, causing you to crash to a planet called 4546b. As you are trying to survive in the frozen planet, you are also trying to find out what happened to your sister. This is as far as I will go through the story, since I didn't really understood it, neither do I want to spoil it. Although I read all of the notes and I did my absolute best to understand everything, at the end, I put myself in a situation that I always hate. Even after finishing the game, I still don't have a clear picture of what really happened. I had the exact same reaction as the original one, but I had a lot of people explaining to me all of the events. I thought it was going to bring a little bit more clarity into what the fuck happened to the first one, but I guess through secret language, hints, and lore that my brain couldn't understand. It was enough of information to come to a conclusion, I guess. A lot of people jerking off on games like this one that it doesn't actually give them all of the informations, and they spend weeks and months macro analyzing all of the informations to come to a conclusion. But that is such a specific niche, isn't it? So all of this was building up to this moment to then come over here and be like, think what you wanna think, imagine what you wanna imagine. Every person incorporate the story in a different way. No, dude, just what's the game about? It was the story, like play by play. This game is driven by lore, secrecy, speculation, and a lot of deep thinking. This is for people who have a good memory and patience to sit down for hours and guess some of the details. Obviously, I am the opposite. I love when the story is self-explanatory and doesn't really force me to think too hard to understand the narration. I saw all of the videos related to the story told by others, but that is external knowledge which I will never support. The honest and transparent Blue says that I played the game for 63 hours and I have no clue what happened. As a survival game expert, my job is to tell you how the delivery of the story should have been and not what the story is about. Most of the story is delivered through voices in your head or through a personal digital assistant.
How do humans function with such a fallible and inferior body?
Excuse you? My body is anything but inferior.
PDAs for shorts can be found scattered around the map, which are pre-recorded dialogues between different people that will help you unfold the mystery of the planet. You will go through an insane amount of reading, but at the end you will never get your questions answered. Questions like who is Altera, why did my sister walk there, who the hell named this planet 4546b, what are the events leading Altera finding this specific planet, is the original game related to this one? I am sure some of the questions were answered, but I had a hard time putting the puzzle together. Understanding that my sister wanted to find the solution to evidence that people were dying around the Leviathan, there's like a missing link or missing messages. That's what it feels like. Again, I speak as a casual player and not a Subnautica enthusiast. Adding more PDAs could bring more clarity to the story, and the locations you find them are not gated behind story progression. You will end up finding some of them before others, making the delivery even more confusing. I end up finding out what happened to my sister before anyone even mentioned her.
I found out what really happened to her, and I got to finish her work.
What happened?
I learned a little bit more about the person I've looked up to for, well, my whole life.
Wait, I feel like you skipped like 10 hours of gameplay right now. And we are at the end, you know. Roll it.
Since the game doesn't really guide you through different zones, you end up wandering around trying to guess where the story starts or continues. At the end, after much frustration, I end up using a step-by-step guide in order to go to all of the locations. These are the expectations you will have for a $60 game, which is more clarity and attention to details. I am not gonna argue that the cinematics were amazing. I'm just saying I wish I understood half of the meaning behind them.
Fuck you, past! I still don't fully understand what the fuck is going on, but fuck you!
If the story progression was the traditional way, like go to A, B, C location and chronologically trigger the events, then I would probably have a completely different experience. Half of the locations were unmarked, and those who had some sort of an indicator, they were miles away from the actual location.
Okay, this is the signal that I'm supposed to find, and this is like 300 meters away. Literally hidden. Like, I've been playing the game for 50, 60, quite a lot of hours. And I just randomly, accidentally found this. A bad story with a good delivery makes it good. A bad delivery with a good story makes it bad. This is not my opinion. This is the fact. Understand that I do this for living. I studied these games for hours, and although the delivery is not the worst, few changes could have made it way better. Despite whether I understood the story or not, I found it very interesting to listen and follow, but you will get exactly what you paid for, which in this case, a confusing average story for people who follow this niche. The game begins with you being on a frozen island with the only option to dive underwater and swim towards your lifepod. You will be able to use the crafting station there, which will start the progression of your game. A small storage is also provided to you, and the resources can be found above or underwater. You have the option to highlight them for easier visibility, which is something that I really appreciate. Certain animals can damage you, and by consuming different food you can restore your
health. You can gather and grow fish and fruits that will help you control your hunger and thirst. Eventually, you will find bigger oxygen tanks that will allow you to stay underwater longer. Early on, drowning could be the main cause of your deaths, and that's not the only source of danger. You can freeze or burn, and different suits can help you balance the temperature. You have only 5 available hot baths, which the average amount for a PC user is 8. I truly hate having 12 buttons on my mouse and be forced to constantly switch between my different tools. Your inventory is limited to 48 slots, and equipment can help you in different ways. Charging your tools while swimming or having a compass on the top of your screen can change your gameplay dramatically. Blueprints display all of your discovered recipes, and by selecting them you can see all of the ingredients without reopening the tab. Some of the locations or objects are marked by default, but you can always set a personal beacon. You can change their color and name, but most importantly you can see the approximate distance. A self-explanatory system that every survival game should always have. You can take pictures using a penguin robot that you can frame and display anywhere you want. Psychologically, this makes the game feel more personal, which always is a good thing. You have a window with all of your PDAs chronologically as you found them, that you can always go back and listen. While trying to understand the story better, I found myself always coming back to this tab. In comparison with the original game, database was done perfectly. I always preach to all of the developers to use exactly this, which is in-game information. When it comes to the craftables, the game managed to impress me to a higher degree than I anticipated. I always felt that the original game had a lot of craftables, but simply not enough. Below Zero not only brought back all of the previous ones, it changed them in a better way and added way more. The amount of things you can make is actually overwhelming. In order to advance through your craftables, you need to scout around for fragments in order to unlock them. The game relies on exploration, and this is the perfect progression system. Unfortunately, that can also cause a lot of problems, such as not finding certain recipes even after finishing the game. Sadly, I wasn't able to find one of the most important upgrades for the C-Truck. C-Truck Afterburner upgrade. Apparently, I'm not good enough to find that one, and the rest of them we already have them. You can use the scanner to locate potential fragments, but the fact that you can find the same ones multiple times can make the scouting a tedious process. If I had the option to filter the ones that I already knew, then that could have solved the issue. You have your craftable resources, consumables, equipment and tools, deployables, and a lot of upgrades. The modification station unlocks your advanced equipment and upgrades, and now this is where things get very interesting. On the original game, you had a huge submarine that you couldn't really customize. Modules are the expansions to the C-Truck, which allows you to customize it as you wish. You have aquarium for storing fish, crafting station, bed for skipping the night, storage, a prawn suit docking, and teleportation. You can add or remove as many as you want, and by customizing the color of the C-Truck will also apply to the rest. Unfortunately, there is no way to store your modules, which I was expecting a mechanical hand to disconnect you from the C-Truck and store the modules symmetrically above or below the moon pool. If you approach it with only one module, you just get disconnected, leaving the module behind. Base pieces can also change color, and there are no built-in limitations as long as you fortify and support the weight. Exterior or interior power is needed in order to make the base functional, and for some reason I had a really hard time connecting lights and power with extensions. Some other structures are water filtration and large aquarium that make survival way easier, and other interiors such as storages and charges can help you be more organized and efficient. One of the best additions to the DLC is the jukebox, which will play the best music that any game ever made. The last tab has all of the decorations, which I tried to utilize as much as I could. The flexibility and customization of your base, it is by far one of the best out there. Walking inside the base and watching everything up close was truly enjoyable, and when you make your own base and scale it up, an overwhelming feeling will remind you the hours you spend making in it. For once in my life, I will happily say that this is how a proper crafting, building and gathering system should be. The overall gameplay consists of you swimming around to find resources, building, listening to PDAs, and enjoying a very hostile environment. Everything wants to kill you, from leviathans to exploding fishes to a non-stop terrible weather. All of the animations and movements were extremely well made, but so close to perfection. Graphically, the game was amazing. This is one of the best looking games I ever played in my life. And trust me, I played a lot of them. There is nothing negative to say. Cinematics look like a movie. The weather effects, even if I hated them, they did their job. And looking underwater made a lot of other games look like a joke. From swimming around, to looking out of my window, to walking inside my sea truck, everything was well thought and executed. It's so out of character to say this, but Subnautica Below Zero had absolutely no graphical errors. The game is divided by different zones with predetermined loot locations. Other than the visual differences, there is no indicator displaying the name of your current biome. Since the map you find is so bad, you cannot really tell where every biome is unless you start marking them using beacons. Each biome was more impressive to explore than the other, but my only complaint is the tight spaces. Since we don't have the big submarine, the developers created the terrain for the size of the sea truck without considering the modules. That led me to abandon my modules completely, since I was always getting stuck everywhere. I was expecting easier navigation with bigger openings, but that was physically impossible. The places that I was able to do that really made the exploration more enjoyable. At least when it comes to navigation, I will definitely prefer the original game. Although each biome truly felt rewarding to explore, their complexity made it very difficult to find some of the POIs even by using a guide. Impossible to find. With the available clues, it's just not enough. Having cables as your navigations, very spread around, rough, really rough. If the game gave us all of the story signals by default, then I wouldn't change anything else to the complexity of the terrain. Below Zero once again proved that you don't need to make a AAA game in order to have an interesting and rewarding environment to explore. Since the beginning of the review, you have been listening to the menu and the in-game music. Although the music was really good, immersive and dynamic, for the most part I had it off since most of the time it wasn't playing. At the beginning, I used my own music to cover the silent moments, but over time it became too annoying, so I decided to mute it.
This is my problem with the music. Out of nowhere, music just starts and stops. With no reason whatsoever. Right now we hear it. And then it goes nothing for a very long time. And I put my own music and it's like, hey, I'm gonna play music now. So I stopped my music to listen to this music. Only if you had something in the background at all time.
I tried multiple times to re-enable it at moments where I knew something important will happen, but unfortunately I was easily disappointed. When the music was actually playing, there was nothing else I wanted to hear.
Music in this game sounds so good.
And different type of music was playing through the jukebox, and I already added the songs to my custom playlist. As for the rest of the sound effects, everything sounded perfect, with the only annoyance the extremely loud aliens when attacking.
Other than that, here are some examples.
Welcome aboard, Captain.
When it comes to the replayability of the game, there is nothing else left behind. If you explored all of the locations, followed the story and pretty much crafted everything, then there is nothing else left to do. You can build more bases in different biomes, but I wouldn't really call it a replayable content. What Below Zero did is phenomenal, and I want to give big props to the developers for not milking their player base and actually valuing their game properly. It is a $30 game that will give you exactly what you paid for. I wish I liked the story a little more, but they didn't really make it easy to understand either. I will be very surprised if it gets more updates, and I will think twice before covering future DLCs. This has been a perspective from a survival game expert and not a storytelling historian. That concludes my review for Subnautica Below Zero, a pretty good DLC that looked like reality. At the current stage of the game, it is definitely recommended for the asking price, as long as you are okay with whatever was said earlier. Keep your standards up and let's find the next garbage. Agree or disagree? Let me know down below. Thank you very much for watching, I appreciate that, and if you want to see my playthroughs live, make sure to follow ICOnlyBlue on YouTube, Twitch and D-Live. Other than that, I'm gonna see you again on the next one. Boy!